everyone, welcome to another Underrated Film Saturday, and today I am going to be discussing an M. Night Shyamalan film again, out of all places. I did talk about The Sixth Sense and how I thought that film stood out as far as a sort of thriller, uh, while also being sort of a interesting sort of supernatural um, story. And I thought it would be cool to kind of discuss Unbreakable, because I know there's some people who might say, well, this film got hype when it came out. Yeah, it did get hype, I think, when it initially came out. And again, after doing research, that's clear. Um, but again, like I've said, over time, I think it sort of diminished its I guess you could say, relevance, as far as a film. And I think that largely has to do with the fact that this was the kind of film that it was sort of the point within M. Night Shyamalan's career where it was kind of, where after that it was shifting. So I think that's something that is very important to note, and I think that's why a lot of people sort of don't look really so much into this film as much anymore. I think it's, though, interesting what it has to say, and I think it offers a sort of unique perspective on a lot of different concepts. So I thought it'd be interesting that I would discuss it today. So the easiest way I can sum up this plot is basically Bruce Willis's character, David, ends up discovering that he has superpowers. And the way he ends up discovering that he has superpowers is actually really cool and unique. Because unlike a lot of other superhero films or films where people have these extraordinary abilities, they're usually given this very kind of fantasy-like persona. You got Spider-Man with the Spider-Man suit, and Iron Man with all of those cool gadgets, and Batman's got his Batmobile. But here, it's really stripped down to something that I think is fairly down to earth, and is something I think that's a lot more realistic into how superheroes kind of would be like if they actually did exist. And it treats superhero dumb in that kind of a way, like that it is something that is very bizarre and out of the ordinary. As opposed to a lot of other superhero films where they just kind of go, yeah, they have superheroes and it's awesome. Whereas here it's kind of like, it's kind of like something that, you keep under wraps, and, you don't really go into or focus on. And even Bruce Willis's character, David, kind of tries to suppress that part of himself, and kind of has this self-denial of it. But he comes across Samuel L. Jackson's character, and you'll see ultimately how you'll see how Samuel L. Jackson's perspective on things is rather different from Bruce Willis's character David, and in doing so, this, I think, ends up causing some tension, especially when you see in the beginning when Bruce Willis's character is kind of trying to rub off the notion that he has some unique capability. So I think that also creates an interesting dynamic. Another thing too, when it comes to this film, is it addresses superherodom in a way that I think makes it a little bit more simpler to its audience, as far as the concepts are concerned, like destiny, uh, agency, purpose. That's another huge thing. And I think, initially when David's character is rubbing off this whole idea that he has superpowers, um, it ultimately ends up kind of, sort of crippling his life. And you'll kind of see too how the people that surround his life, there's this distance because of that. But once he kind of discovers his superpowers, and there's this very, very brilliantly done moment within the film. And I would say the best parts of this film happen at the end. Those last, like, 30 minutes of this film really do, I think, stand out. Because the way he just lets himself kind of go is really when the powers start to shine. And he has this amazing capability. And you'll see what that capability is if you choose to watch the film. And in doing so, um, he sort of, in a way, becomes a superhero. And he sort of was a superhero even within his past. And you'll see sort of what I mean if you choose to watch the film. But again, it's done in a completely just sort of realistic way. He doesn't dress up, he doesn't put on a show, he just lets himself go, and then in doing so he discovers his capabilities. And I think that's something that is also very important, to the kind of staying true to who you are, not, suppressing your nature or who you are as a person. And at the same time too, though, you can make the argument that's also really scary to, have people sort of reveal their true nature. And you will see this with Samuel L. Jackson's character, which I'm not going to give away exactly what happens as far as his character is concerned, but again, you'll sort of see how when we become sort of who we are, and kind of embrace the agency, the potential agency that we have as human beings, that sometimes can be, for good, and then that sometimes can be done for evil. And I think that's really ultimately the kind of messages this film is trying to send. That sometimes sometimes there is this nature that exists within us that maybe you can't alter to be good, or is made to be good. So again, it is bringing up a lot of deeper things than maybe people might realize. And I think it's really an interesting film. And again, I am aware of its initial popularity, but I think over the years it's kind of weared off. And I think it's sort of the forgotten Shyamalan film. Like, I don't think really anybody talks about this film. I mean, they'll talk about Signs and how kind of crazy and ridiculous that film was. They'll talk about The Sixth Sense with its iconic line, "I see dead people all day." But when it comes to this film, it's just kind of it just kind of leaves you. It doesn't seem to be all that memorable, or at least it's not the one that I think a lot of people really do talk about nowadays. Similar to Dead Poets Society, like, I don't think that film people talk so much about nowadays, unlike when it was initially released. So again, I think this is one that's definitely worth exploring if you are interested. I mean, it's not a long film either, so it even though it is slow at times, once things are ultimately revealed, there's, I think, sort of this appreciation that I had for it, because then I knew what it was really ultimately trying to say. So I think that's really the strength that this film possesses, um, by being a little bit more slow, by taking its time to kind of introduce everything, but strip it down to its most basic level, and in doing so, say and bring up a lot of interesting ideas. Uh, but I think that's really ultimately all I can say about this film without giving too much away. Um, but yeah, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Goodbye. And I managed to upload this one on Saturday because I did have time today. Um, I'm hoping to get Sundays up on time. Um, and yeah, but until then, everybody, bye bye.